Okay, hi everyone, and a very warm welcome to this KPMG Focus on Audit session today. My name is Claire, and I am one of the student recruitment officers here at KPMG. I'm joined by my colleague, Amara Sashadina, who is another student recruitment officer who looks after London and the East. And Amara is on hand to answer all of your questions in the chat. So please do feel free to ask any questions you have in the chat today throughout today's session. So today's agenda then, what will we cover? So first we'll hear from Julie Wilden, who's a partner in our Gatwick office, and we'll hear a bit more about Julie's career journey. So I'm really excited to hear from Julie. We will then have our career journeys from Zane and Claudia, who are graduate trainees from our Edinburgh and Manchester offices. So they're two fantastic graduates that are here to speak with you today. And then we're going to have our panel, and joining us also on our panel is Vivek, who's a director in our Southampton office, and Lewis, who's an assistant manager in our Aberdeen office. And we'll all be joining you on the panel today where you can ask any question at all with regards to KPMG or our programmes here. So let's get started with a brief overview of KPMG. So KPMG in the UK is part of a global network of member firms that offers audit, tax, legal, consulting, deal advisory, and technology services. We audit many of the UK's largest companies, and joining us means that you'll work alongside some of the brightest minds in business, supporting the UK in a connected world and being part of an inclusive environment where everyone feels empowered to spark debate, innovate, and bring about change. So we offer insight programs, which are our work experience programs, vacation programs, which are our summer programs, and graduate programs, which are all open for applications for 2023 right now. So you can apply online for any of our student programs at kpmgcareers.co.uk. So throughout this session, I will be posting all of the links to apply for all of our different student programs into the chat function. So applications, as I mentioned already, are open for all of these programs right now, and we'd advise you to make your applications as soon as possible. Just to quickly cover off our application process before we get started today, our application process is made up of 4 stages. So the first stage is that you submit an online application. There's no CV required, so you don't need to put a CV together. Secondly, you would then complete our first assessment, which is called Transforming Small Businesses. Thirdly, you would complete our second online assessment, which is called Delivering Outcomes, which will be specific to the business area that you've applied for. And lastly is our virtual launchpad, which is our 3-hour virtual assessment centre. And the biggest tip that I can give you today for making an application to any of our student programs is to do our practice test, which is available to anyone online. So if you do the practice test first, then you'll know what to expect for the real thing. So now moving on to begin our session today, I'm really excited to introduce you to Julie Wilden, who is our partner in our Gatwick office.
Fantastic, thank you, and good afternoon. It's an absolute pleasure to have the opportunity to speak to you all today. So my name's Julie, I'm an audit partner at KPMG and I lead the team in our Gatwick office. So you're at a really exciting time in your life, right? You're trying to decide what's the right career path that's going to work for you. So what we want to do here today is help explain what auditors do and bring to life what a career in audit means and why it's so great, why we love it. So before I get into my career journey and story so far, I thought it was worth covering off what is an audit and why do we do it? Make sure everyone really understands that bit. So I'm sure you've all read the definitions, right? An audit, it examines a company's financial statements to ensure they provide a true and fair view. But what does that mean? Why do we do it? So audit really plays a critical part in building trust in the economy, and quite simply, capital markets wouldn't operate without it. And I thought the best thing I could do to really bring it to life for you today and why it's so important and critical is just talk to you about one of my clients and the journey they've been on. So I'm going to introduce you to Bramble. They're a relatively new startup company and they're all about green energy. So they're currently investing lots of money and they're producing hydrogen fuel cell product, and the aim is they're going to be able to power cars, buses, planes using hydrogen. So all about green energy. As a new company, they need investors to back them. They need funding such that they can grow and hopefully make that really positive difference to the future of how we get our energy and therefore the environment. So they're going out, they're talking to investors, and a really important part of the story when they're talking to investors is what their financial position looks like. Because any investor wants to understand exactly where their money's going and, importantly, be confident that they're going to get their money back. So those company financial statements are a critical piece of information that investors use to make that decision. So the big question for our investors is, how can they be confident that the information in those financial statements are accurate? How are they confident that they can rely on that? Because a company may want to present a more favourable position to get the money they want. So this is where an audit comes in and where it's so critical. Because we as auditors, we've been into that company, we've independently looked at the financials, we've performed the various tests and checks and agreed various bits of information through. And once we're happy, we then slot our audit report into those accounts. And it's that audit report that gives the investors the confidence to trust that information and therefore invest their money. So without an audit, Bramble, my company, wouldn't be able to get the investment they needed to develop their really exciting green energy solution. And honestly, that's what I love about being an auditor, that we make a meaningful difference to businesses that we work with and to our communities. And I get the pleasure of working with really exciting growing companies like Bramble who are making a huge difference to our future. And that's just one example. So let me share a little bit more about me and my career as an auditor. So I actually did my ACA training contract with a mid-tier firm, and they were called Baker Tilly at the time. Now, when I started, this was many years ago, my maiden name was Baker. So honestly, when I started working at Baker Tilly, I thought I was destined to be a partner there. My name was already in the title. However, after 3 years, quite liked audit, but wanted a new challenge. And that's when I joined KPMG as an assistant manager. And that was back in 2005 when I joined the Gatwick office. And I have stayed with KPMG Gatwick audit team for coming up to 20 years now. And I've worked my way up. Started as assistant manager, I'm now the partner responsible for the Gatwick office. And that may sound like a lot of years in the same department doing the same thing, but the reason I've been here so long is it's been such a journey with loads of different opportunities, different challenges. Every day I've been learning, growing, having new opportunities, and that's why I love it. Because audits really is an environment where you can drive your own career, seek out the opportunities that interest you, and at KPMG, in a firm that's got the most fantastic culture to support and encourage you to do this. So just pull out some of my highlights over those 20 years that have kept me here for so long. I've had a good few opportunities to work overseas, which is just always really, really excited to see different cultures and territories. So I've been to a few parts of America. I've also had a few adventures to Africa. Tanzania was one of my favourites. It was really, really fascinating to visit. I spend quite a lot of my time doing business development, so being out in the market, meeting new clients and pitching and winning new work, which I just really, really enjoy and like that piece. I've been involved in some amazing new wins, and my most memorable one is Gatwick Airport. So working in the Gatwick office, you can imagine Gatwick Airport is a big local brand for us, so absolutely brilliant for us to win that one. I've also had the opportunity to work on secondment, and I went to work at one of our non-audit clients, and I worked as a financial controller. And that experience in industry taught me that I didn't like it, which was helpful and helped me to decide that I wanted to stay in audit and have the variety and the culture that we get. And for me personally, I've always really enjoyed the people side of the businesses. So I've always carved out lots of internal roles for myself, driving our people agenda at KPMG and supporting our talent coming through with things like talent programs and helping them get to the next level. So loads of different things that I've done along the way that have just made it absolutely brilliant. I thought I'd give you a flavour of some of the clients that I've worked with, so you get a feel for the variety that we get to experience in audit. So a few that I'll pull out for you include Harvey Nichols, who are a London high-end department store. Gatwick Airport, I've mentioned, who I'm sure you all know. I've worked with Kering, who are an international high-end retailer. So those of you into fashion might know Alexander McQueen, Balenciaga are a couple of their brands. Also worked with Kuoni, who sell luxury holidays. That's always a lovely one to be at. And a nice one for the food lovers is Saputo Dairy Crest, who make cathedral cheddar. Any cheese fans in the house might be in your fridge. So a real fantastic variety that I've had to experience. And to be honest, that's just a handful of the companies that I've had the pleasure of working with along the years. So audit really is a brilliant place to work. And I'd sort of sum it up that as an auditor, we get privileged access to some really interesting companies, and you get to understand how they operate. You get exposed to senior leadership, so you'll be talking to board members very early in your career. And what you get is a really well-rounded introduction to the world of finance, if this is where you choose to start your career. Thought I'd just touch on the reason why I personally love working in a regional office. So I'm currently in Gatwick, which is south of London, so still quite close to our London hub. But it's a smaller regional office, and I honestly think it's perfect. You get the full KPMG brand experience, all the opportunities that come working with a big company, but you get that family feel environment in a smaller office. And we have the most wonderful sense of community here in the Gatwick office, and we do absolutely loads to support our local community. So things like reading with local schools, getting involved in events to raise money for charity. And actually on Monday, about 30 of us are going out to Nyman's National Trust, and we're doing some gardening. I'm not sure how I feel about that, but I'll give it a go. So loads and loads to get involved in. And the team that I've got around me, and to be honest, all of our audit teams, it's just one of the best working environments you can get. I think the average age of my department's probably about 24, so they keep me young. And we're a really sociable lot. So we do things like beach volleyball, crystal maze, shuffleboarding, we've done dragon boat races. So it's a real team, a really supportive environment that you get from KPMG and in audit. It's a place that challenges you, keeps you growing and developing, but with endless opportunities to try new things and keep pushing yourself. So to catch it all together, if you're someone that enjoys working with people, you want to understand more about businesses, you enjoy learning and developing, I would highly recommend audit as probably the perfect place to start your career journey. So listen, please do use the chat, chuck in any questions that you got, and we'll try our best to answer them as we go along. But I'm going to pass you over to Zane now, so you can actually hear from one of our graduate trainees, and Zane's one of our trainees in Edinburgh. So over to you, Zane.
Thank you, Julie, for your introduction in there briefly, and it was nice to hear from you about the audit and the clients you have been working with. It's a long list of interesting clients. So I'm actually one of the graduate trainees in Edinburgh office, guys, and my name is Zane Asif. Just to give you a brief introduction for myself first, I actually am one of the graduate trainees in audit, and unlike Julie, I don't work for such nice clients. I actually work for more of the investment management side. So it's more of the financial services audit I deal with, but it doesn't mean that the clients are not nice. They are very nice, and you get a nice exposure. And you get to see a lot of things as early in your career, which Julie had mentioned. That is also quite right. So giving you a bit of a history about how I joined KPMG and which uni I went to. I actually went to Edinburgh Uni back in 2006. And then I graduated from there in 2011, followed by having some entrepreneurial tasks done. So I actually opened up a small business of myself under the name of a fried chicken shop called Chickies, which ran for almost like 3 years. And after that, I got bored, and it was too much of a hassle there, and it was requiring a lot of input. There was no work-life balance. So I moved on to starting my own small consultancy business, and which I did for like a couple of years. And then eventually in 2016, I made an application with KPMG. So that was the first time I actually applied for any job since I left the uni. So I didn't apply for any jobs since like 2011, and I have been an entrepreneur for almost 6 years of my life. And then suddenly I thought that, okay, I have to get some, if I have to basically work, I need to get the CA qualification done, which I was supposed to do a long time back, but it got delayed because of the ventures I started there. So just to add on a few things in there. So when I was doing my KPMG application, I found it pretty much straightforward and easy. Claire has mentioned to you about how the steps are. So at that time, the steps were a bit different. But eventually, by the time you're coming to assessment center or to a launchpad event, that is still there. It has changed to virtual, I believe. That's what Claire has said now. It's not hard. You don't have to be there for it's just not only the graduate programs are not only available to the newly graduates who are just qualified from the university. So even if you have left uni, like in my case, I left uni 6 years ago before I applied for KPMG. So they considered me for to be a graduate still at that time, even though the age was a factor, and the number of years I left out was also a factor as well. But I think that that experience did help me to clear up my job interviews and then go on with the event and then with the launchpad event and then finally get a job offer in there. So application process was, as I mentioned, it was pretty much straightforward. It was easy to follow. You get all the help and support. So what I will advise you over here is this, that just try to focus on one application at a time. Don't try to go on to multiple applications. And if you spend a good amount of time on doing one application, I would say that at least 2 to 3 days, I would say, if you're spending a good few hours in there, you will definitely be able to do a good in terms of the interview. And I would not expect somebody to not reach an interview if they have spent some good time in knowing what the company is they're applying to and what sort of things are required for them. So these are small tips which I can give you on in terms of the applications which you are making. While Julie was talking there, I was also looking at the chat messages, and a lot of people are actually asking a few questions out there regarding that, if they are from multidisciplines, if they can offer, if they could be offered a place. So just for everybody, that you don't have to be a qualified. You don't have to be having a qualification in accounting or business or finance to come into audit. You could be anybody from any sort of like background in terms of your undergrad degree, as long as you have one. You're fine. I'm not really sure about the apprenticeship, that how will that work out. So maybe Claire can help you guys there on those questions there. But for graduate route, I can certainly see that a lot of questions are coming through in there. So any discipline is fine. You don't have to be from one discipline. And I will refer this back. This is something which is being followed by all the audit firms now, that they take people across everybody. I've actually met a director, somebody who was actually a doctor himself as well, and he was a qualified doctor. And he actually he changed his career and moved to KPMG. And he's in London office. I'm not sure where he's right now, but this is me talking about 2017, 2018 time. So there are some of the myths in there, which I would say that it's nice to know about. And in terms of your applications, I would say that as soon as you can put them forward, put them through, they would be nicer for you to secure a place, I would say. While working for KPMG, I would say that it's a very nice firm to work on with. They look on for it's not like a yardstick for everybody. They look on for your personal needs as well. They will accommodate you for those things too in there. And it's people from different cultures. That's the main thing. And regardless of what culture you're from, you get treated in the same way, which is a very nice thing. And you get respect. And working with different clients as well, you get to work not on the same thing every time. You're being rated on different tasks as well. And you don't have to be in audit all the time, as Julie mentioned there earlier on as well, that she moved across in different departments as well. So that is right. As soon as you are close to your qualification in 3 years' time, you get the opportunity to move across different departments as well. There are secondment opportunities in financial services audit as well, and you can move across different bits in there. Other than that, I would say that Edinburgh office is quite nice to work in. It's literally opposite to the castle, and most of the seating position is in this way that if you're sitting on your desk, you're actually facing towards the castle, which is a very nice view. So you can see the castle all the time. I think Queen might not have seen the castle as long as I have seen that for there in the first 2 years I joined. So yeah, it's actually quite a nice place to be at. And if you have got any other questions, please feel free to ask me. I'll wait for another 30 seconds to see if I can answer somebody's questions there. If not, then I'll happily pass on to Claudia, who will
We do have a specific question for you. Zain, someone has asked you personally what it is you're studying and how you're finding that qualification.
Sorry, I actually missed on that part. I got excited with Julia's work experiences there and her career so much. I forgot to mention about that bit. So I'm actually doing my ICAS exams at the moment, and I'm studying towards it. And it takes 3 years to be qualified. Obviously, because of my personal reasons, I have taken a bit longer in that, and then the COVID came in there as well. So this is what I'm doing at the moment. It's AC. It's called ACA, and it's called CA, and that's with ICAS. That's what I'm doing right now.
Fantastic. And how have you been supported with that qualification, Zain?
In terms of support, I would say that I have got all the support I need, to be honest. I had time off work as well. I was being given about enough time. So please don't think that if you're working, studying at the same time, it's going to be very hard. It's definitely not hard. It's not hard at all. You're given enough time to study for your exams. And when you are studying, it means you are actually studying. You are not basically wasting time around here and there on things in terms of jobs and stuff like that. You are not being bothered with any client work. Your managers are aware of this. Everyone in the department knows that you're off for study leave, so no one will bother you out for any task to be done. And the time which is being offered is quite generous as well. Now, and this is outside your annual leave. So your annual leave is not touched. You get your full annual leave. I don't know how many days are there. I think it's like 25 odd days. I could be wrong here or there, but it's 25 odd days in there. And then in terms of your study time, there are obviously for CA qualification, there are 3 levels in there: your TC, your TPS, your TPE. So if I was to bring it down to a subject level, every subject at least you're given around 2.5 weeks or 3 weeks time. There are obviously less on TC level because the exams are not as tough. But as you go further onto your TPS level, the exams will certainly get more tougher. So that's where you get more time as well. And your costs are all paid. Your lunches across when you're going to attend the classes, they're getting paid as well, which is a nice thing. And if you're traveling far out, that gets compensated as well by the firm. So there is a lot of support available. And obviously, if you are still struggling with anything, you can contact senior members who are qualified, and they can certainly help you out with the questions as well. I had a couple of times reach out to my senior managers who were explaining me a few things on the audit point of view. So yeah, there is support available there.
Thank you so much, Zain. I'd like to pass over now to Claudia.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hi everyone, nice to meet you all. I'm Claudia and I'm currently an E3 graduate in the Manchester office. I started KPMG in 2020 during the height of the pandemic, and I was on the ACA intensive program. So this is basically where you do your 14 out of 15 ACA exams in the first 10 months of joining, and then you join the firm after you've completed your 14 exams. So in terms of my background and uni, so I actually studied pharmacy in university. It's a 4-year master's course, and then I went on to complete my training year and qualified as a pharmacist. I worked in the community and in the hospital during the pandemic until I started at KPMG in 2020. And the reason that I chose audit is because I really wanted a role where I could be involved in finance and finances, but I also wanted a mix where I was able to gain an understanding of business processes and operations. And looking back at my decision, I think it's met my expectations in terms of being able to gain business knowledge as well as financial knowledge Yes, and yeah, I think in terms of the KPMG interview process, I found it really inclusive in the sense that at the time when I did the interview, it wasn't timed, and I feel like for someone who is part of the who's neurodiverse, I felt like that was really, really positive because I wasn't worried about time. So I did really enjoy that. In terms of the KPMG office in Manchester, it's absolutely great. It's really nice. I actually went to a student recruitment event in a high school a few weeks ago, and it was year 8s and year 9s, and they said that they specifically remember KPMG just because they were able to visit the office, and it was great. So yeah, if kids like it, then I'm sure any of you guys would like it. The reason I chose Manchester instead of, say, London, for example, probably because the most obvious reason, it's cheaper to live in. And I just like Manchester. It's a bit smaller, it's very well connected, and yeah, I think it's a great city. Does anyone have any questions?
I think what we'll do then, Claudia, is we will open up to start our panel. And I've been writing down everyone's questions for the panel, and we'll ask them in a moment. So I would like to introduce Vivek, who is a director from our Southampton office.
Hi everyone. Yeah, I've worked for KPMG for a number of years. I work in the South Coast office. It's a regional office, quite a small office, but very much like Julie was describing, quite family friendly is how I would describe it. You kind of know everyone, and it's just fantastic to be able to come into the office, talk to people that you know on a social level, get on with the work that you need to do rather than the larger offices. So yeah, I've been based in South Coast for the entirety of my career, but being reasonably close to London, it's nice to be able to get that experience of going up to some of my London-based clients as well, working in various sectors, quite a lot of restaurants and retails, which has ended up being my specialism.
Thank you so much. And now moving over to Lewis from our Aberdeen office.
Hi, so yeah, from south down to the absolute north that you can get. My name's Lewis. I'm an assistant manager in the Aberdeen office. I started at KPMG in 2019, just before the pandemic. And yeah, the Aberdeen office, we're one of the smaller offices. We're around 80 to 100 people in the audit department. But the nice thing is we're all on one floor, so you get to know people across many different departments that you'd never get to see. So I've got friends in tax, in deals. There's somebody who works in forensics that I've gotten to chat to, so it's very friendly, very chatty, and very supportive as well. I've been really well supported by all the colleagues and friends that I've made throughout the office. Yeah, I'm excited to hear questions. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much. So I'm going to start off by asking a question myself, and that is, we know that London is a very popular location for new graduates, but what would you say are the advantages of working in one of our regional offices outside of London? So Lewis, if we could start with you in Aberdeen.
Yeah, so I would say I've personally found a lot of advantages to working in a small office. Originally, I didn't want to apply to Big Four because I thought it was a bit too intense, a bit too competitive. For me, I'm not a very competitive person. So whereas when I started in Aberdeen and when I went along, we had a pre-join dinner. Everyone's just very friendly. Everyone's there to help you. I was very surprised by how supportive the people within KPMG were. Everyone is very, very nice that I've spoken to, genuinely. Especially in the Aberdeen office, I've had the benefit of, even if the people I'm working on a job with are very busy, I have the person sat next to me, I know them well enough that I can ask them for help with something, or I know there's people below me now in an assistant manager role, there's people who are more junior who feel comfortable coming to me with any questions or issues. So I do really enjoy that, and I do really enjoy the social aspect of it. You get to know a lot of people. We even though we're a small office in Aberdeen, we are a very international office. We have people who've come over from Ghana, Nigeria, Brazil. So there's that, you're not necessarily missing out on that multiculturalism that you get within the London office. And I would also say that as far as clients go, you're still working on very big clients. In the Aberdeen office, we have a listed entity that's very large. We also have a number of smaller entities across a variety of fields. And because some of these entities are smaller, you get to chat to the CFO, the CEO, the COO. You're getting to know these people that you maybe wouldn't see if you were on a big, massive engagement with hundreds of people working on it. You'd maybe never get to see these people. So I'd say there's definitely a lot of advantages to working in regional office as well.
Thanks so much, Lewis. And coming to Julie, could you tell us a bit about the Gatwick office?
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing that really makes a regional office is that family-friendly feel. So the thing that I would pull out, and hearing some of my grads speak, the thing that they really enjoy is they see me regularly in the office. So they get that face time really early on in their early days with the partners of the firm, which they absolutely love. And I'm a sharer, so they get to know everything.
Thanks so much. And we'll just hear from one more. So Vivek, could you tell us a bit about Southampton, please?
Yeah, so in the Southampton office, and I think consistent with other regional offices, the thing that you really get is that really quite early responsibility. So some of our engagements are still very large organisations, but not necessarily ones that are made up of 20, 30, 40 people within the team. So if you're working with a 5 or 10 person team, you're much likely to get some of that responsibility a bit earlier on. So thinking back to when I first joined, that moment when you first walk into a client is quite something, but then all of a sudden you're going into a boardroom having maybe 2 or 3 years of experience, if that, and starting to present some of the findings of the work. That's not necessarily something you would do so early in your career, perhaps on our largest audits, but a fantastic thing to be able to do in the regional offices, and certainly do that in South Coast.
Thanks so much. So there's been a lot of questions in the chat, and I've taken a note of hopefully all of the questions that haven't been directly answered. So just sticking with Vivek then, could you please tell us, one of the questions that we've had is, what skills do you need to be an auditor?
It's interesting because when I talk to some of my family members, they don't necessarily quite get what it takes to be an auditor, and sometimes they think it's all about numbers and all about mathematics and that kind of thing, but it's not. I think it's the key thing for me is being inquisitive, and also being quite analytical in terms of how you think things through, think problems through. So a big part of it is being ready to go and talk to people and ask the questions, because if you ask probing questions and you're interested in what those answers, and you analyze those answers and just think about what a potential outcome could be, all of a sudden you could just be pulling at a thread that could be a really important piece of work as part of the audit. So yeah, I'd say inquisitive and analytical.
Thanks so much. And we have a question for Julie, which is, what is the career path to becoming an audit partner? And do you have any advice for people who would be interested in that?
Yeah, absolutely. So working at a company like KPMG, generally it's an environment where you need to be progressing and keep challenging and growing. If you're not growing and developing, generally you're standing still, and that's not a good place to be. So we have a natural path to progress up through the firm, and within KPMG there is just a huge amount of support around you the whole way. So everyone has a performance manager to help you figure out, well, where do you want to get to and how do we help you get there? So that's what this culture is all about in helping you get to your end goals, because it's different for everyone. So we are all about helping you carve out the career that you really want. If you want to be a partner, it's theirs. It's yours for the taking, right? You just need to be hungry for it and grab those opportunities is the main thing, I'd say.
Thanks so much. A question for Lewis. So what made you choose auditing over other financial services areas such as banking?
So that's a very good question. I did an accounting degree at university, so I maybe had more of a direct pathway than people who studied other degrees. I liked the team aspect of audit. I like the fact that you work as part of a team. You're quite well supported. We doing an accounting degree, a lot of different firms came in to talk to us, and one of the firms that came in was KPMG, and just so happened the person was the KPMG Aberdeen office they were really selling. And they described how it's a team aspect. You're getting to try something new every day, which the more you talk, the more friends that I have that work in different industries, it's quite rare to actually have a job where you're genuinely doing something new every couple of days, or exploring, learning something new, learning new software, learning a new part of the financial system. So that really appealed to me. And I think as well, there's quite a good pathway. So at the end of your 3-year graduate scheme, you get your CA, and there's loads of opportunities within KPMG if you want to explore. There's ESG is becoming a big thing in audit for environmental social governance. So there's lots of different pathways once you finish audit, and I felt that audit gave quite a good base knowledge for a potential career in audit or going into something else afterwards.
Thank you so much, Lewis. Our next question is for Zane, and that is, do you think the skills you obtained as an entrepreneur are useful as an auditor? If so, how do you apply it in your tasks as an auditor?
I think the most important skills which I gained from working as an entrepreneur was just that you're able to multitask. And at the same time, you have to be looking on every aspect of the things as well. So you're looking from your kitchen onto your deliveries and onto your suppliers coming in there and your customers. So it's more of a thing that you have got a leg tied everywhere around there. So and on top of that, communication that needs to be effective, and you make sure that you're able to communicate effectively to make sure that you're able to instruct your colleagues or your subordinates to do, or your employees to do what they should be doing. So these were sort of the main skills which I think I actually got from being an entrepreneur there, and they are very useful in audit, because when you are working, you're working definitely with an audited entity there, and you will have contacts there. So you need to communicate with them effectively to make sure that your objectives are met, and whatever audit you're doing on, you will need certain things to come from them. So that will be helpful. Communication within the team members as well. And then multitasking is the one, because obviously you're working on different sides of things. If you are in charge as a graduate trainee, in your first 2 years, you might not be utilizing much of the multitasking bit in there. But as you progress into your 3rd year, that's when you're being expected to be in charge of the engagement, as Lewis is at the moment. I would imagine he would be in charge of multiple engagements as well at the same time. So that's where the multitasking skill comes in there. But the thing is just that it's not that these skills, you can't learn them in the job. You can still learn them in your first 2 years as well. You can, like I learned them. I just got a bit of I would say that prior experience, which helped me to gain those things at an early stage before joining KPMG, and then apply them over here. But these would be, you could easily get on to these within the job as well. And first 2 years are all your learning years. 3rd year, you come into where you are being independently given more tasks to come across to yourself. So I believe I've actually answered that question there, Claire. If anyone has got anything else, I can explain further.
Thank you so much. Our next question is for Claudia. So how intense is studying while working? How do you balance working and studying at the same time?
So I was on the ACA intensive program. So I actually did all of my 14 exams while not working at the same time. So I was exclusively in college for those exams. However, my last exams, which I am due to take, I am studying at the same time as working. And as long as you're organized and your team are aware of your college days and when your exam is, it's quite okay to juggle. Everyone at the firm is really supportive. You get dedicated study time. You get a tuition provider supplied by KPMG. So yeah, you just have to be organized, and you have to know when you need to ask for help, whether that be if work is getting a bit too difficult or if your exams are getting too difficult. And there's always someone in your department, so your performance manager, that you can reach out to if you're having any difficulties, and come up with a solution together.
Thank you so much. Our next question is for Vivek, so without giving too much away, or maybe without naming any particular names, what is the most exciting project you've done so far?
The most exciting project, I think. That's interesting. I think one of my most exciting projects. So when you work with an audit, you often get an opportunity to do things other than annual financial statement audits. As you get more experience, you could do different things. And one of the things that I had an opportunity to do was to work on a listing as part of a pharmaceutical company that we're looking to list in the US. As part of that, there's a huge amount of work that you need to do in advance of that to look at the controls of the organization, to look at the underlying reporting mechanisms that they have, and probably spent about 4 or 5 months on and off working through this with them, which then culminated in them being able to go off, raise the funds that they needed and list. The amount of I hadn't really worked in pharmaceuticals before then, and I had some experience of working with US entities. I think seeing something from start to finish and then that whole project getting away was fantastic. Those opportunities do come up from time to time, and it's having that chance to take that outside of your usual day-to-day work, which is really great. That was one of my most exciting projects.
Thanks so much, Vivek. Similar question for Julie. What are the most and least interesting parts of your job? Someone has asked.
Oh dear. So the most interesting part, well, the part that I really love the most, it's the variety and the opportunity to meet lots and lots of different clients and see what good looks like, maybe what not so good looks like, and just have that broad breadth of experience. So, you know, as one of the team mentioned earlier, those with inquisitive minds that enjoy learning about companies, it's absolutely perfect for. And if you don't like to sit still and like lots of variety, it's just perfect. In terms of the least good part, what would I pull out as the least good part? Oh, goodness, that's a tough one. So there's definitely some more challenging areas of our audit. There are some bits that are a little bit more boring. The piece that I'd say is as you progress, you generally do less and less and less of that. So stick with it and you'll just love it more and more.
Thanks so much. And Vivek, could you please tell us a little bit more about the day-to-day duties of an audit, what you're kind of doing 9 to 5?
Yeah, so for me personally as a director, I'm ultimately responsible for signing off the audit opinion on a set of financial statements, but I can't do it without my team. And it's my managers, senior managers, assistant managers, everybody who forms part of that team. So on a day-to-day basis, it might be that my team are working out at the client site, performing the test work that we've previously agreed, discussed, and come up with a plan for. So I might come out, have some meetings with my team to see how they're getting on, challenge some of that work, and also talk to my team about their progress. I might also go in and talk to the management team, see how they are, try and see if there are any risks or other matters that we haven't discussed. It's normally quite a good atmosphere out on a client site. You're always in different places, different situations and environments, so that makes for a great team feeling. I might only be there for half a day or so it's not untypical for me to then go off and do something else. I might visit another client. I could go into a audit committee meeting. So very often towards the back end of the audit, I will need to present the findings that we have to board members and independent audit committee members. That's a really interesting part of my job, because you're then required to sometimes talk about some pretty complex matters, but try and translate them at a level that all members of the board would understand. So probably might spend a bit of time doing that within a board meeting or audit committee meeting, and then also making time sort of one-on-one for my team as well. So all partners, directors, as well as managers will often be performance managers, will be responsible for performance of individuals, and also the sort of career management and guidance that we can provide. So providing that support to some of my appraisees is also something that I might do on a day-to-day basis.
Thank you.
But every day is very different as well, so it's hard to describe one day.
And someone's just come in off the back of that. Rachel, thank you so much for your question. And it's, what about audit duties for a new graduate? Maybe we could actually cut to Zane to answer that one.
Sorry, yep. So can you please repeat the question there, Claire? I was actually looking at the chat myself as well, and I think that I might have mixed up with another one. So
what are the day-to-day duties for a brand new audit graduate?
So I would say that the duties actually tend to change quite frequently. You're not doing the same thing the next day. You might not be doing the same thing in the next job as well. Mainly, what you're doing on is working along your team, your work, which you are assigned to. And obviously the team will be conducting audits in one of the entities somewhere. So you might be working up, tying back your creditors or debtors, making sure you're doing testing on them, or making the audit evidence available for the reviews, and assigning the tasks to other colleagues as well if you are not able to do them yourself, or if you think that you're too much overburdened. So these are the main sort of like tasks which I will believe you will do. It's not that you will come across a task which might not be explained to you. You will always be given in the first few years, even at a later point as well, I would imagine. You are always being given the opportunity to ask the questions and get a debrief on what is required. And also you're being communicated in a debrief as well that why the task you're doing is going to be crucial towards audit as well. So these are small things to look onto, but there is nothing to worry about in the job, because all the support and all the help which is required for you to work in the first years and even beyond that point as well, that is available. As Julie mentioned, that if you're seeing yourself as a partner and you want to go to that point as well, you will be supported for that. So tasks wise, it's mainly around doing or supporting the overall audit, completing up testing works, or maybe you are dealing with the planning stage of the audit, or like maybe you might be looking at the accounts to see that if there is if there's a risk somewhere coming up here or there. So these sort of things will be there, but rest be assured that you won't be given a task like that which you can't do, and you will always have enough support around you to explain that in there.
Thank you so much. And Claudia, another question for yourself is, what tips would you give to someone who might be in a similar position to you, who doesn't have a degree in a subject such as accounting or economics?
I think the most important thing is definitely have an open mind and be inquisitive and always ask questions, and always to remember that you're not the only one who might not understand a certain concept. And definitely it will take a few days or weeks for things to start clicking when it comes to exams, but they will eventually click. Also make friends with people in your offices and your teams and in your class, because at the end of the day, these are the people who you will ask support for. Yeah, it's really great if you have a network of people who you can kind of share your worries with, your questions with, revise together. And yeah, I don't think not having a technical background and studying accounting in uni puts you miles behind to those that haven't, because the majority of the people in my department at the moment didn't actually study accounting at uni. So it is really, really doable. But yeah, my main advice would be to always ask questions.
Thank you. That's great advice. Thank you so much. A question for you, Lewis. So what are the main things that you think KPMG are looking for in being an auditor? So what kind of skills do you think that you see yourself using most days?
Yeah, so I'd say, to echo what Julie and Vivek, I feel like everyone's kind of said it, being inquisitive. I'd say people skills is something that you can really develop in yourself. So just feeling comfortable to ask questions. That's one of the main things that you do in general, especially when you first start. You're going to have to ask a million questions, and just sort of doing the kind of counting down to yourself 3, 2, 1, and then just ask the question and get it out there. It can really help. And once you start getting over that, I think that's a really good thing. I'd say, especially for the interview, one of the main things I'd recommend is just try to be yourself as best you can, as much as that's very much like a poster behind me you'd expect. But at the end of the day, the interview is much of an interview for us as an interview for you. You need to see whether this firm is what you want in your career. And if you come in playing a character that's not yourself, then you'll have a really hard time when you start, or you just might not necessarily like it as much as you think you do. But I do think you will like it. It's a great firm. But I'd say, yeah, definitely being yourself. A bit of talking to people really helps, and an inquisitive mind as well, and being willing to try new things. That's one of the best things about this job, is that you're doing a new thing every day. But it is also one of the more challenging things, is that you're constantly learning something new. You're constantly having to ask a question. You're constantly trying to develop yourself. So having a wee kind of push for yourself to develop is really beneficial as well.
Thank you so much. Question for Julie, which is, how long does it normally take to complete an audit engagement?
Oh, there's no quick answer to that one. So it very much depends on the size of the company and effectively how the level of risk that we deem there to be in that audit. So the way that it works is we do a risk-based audit. So it's really about understanding the company and then deciding how and what tests we're going to do to perform that audit. But there's two sort of main chunks of an audit. We do planning and risk assessment, which will generally happen before the year end. So you'll have at least a week's work before the year end's even happened. It can be a couple of months' work, depending on the size. And then you'll have the final audit, where you've got all those year end numbers that you're looking to test. And that can be anywhere from sort of 2 weeks to 3 months in terms of how long that audit actually takes. And then the size of the team can be anything from 2 people to lots of people. So for a BT of this world, for example, that has got a very huge team, because there's an awful lot of work to do in a short space of time. So this is where I suppose there's lots of different opportunities depending on which part of the firm you join. But what we really encourage is people to own their career. Think about, well, what type of companies would you actually enjoy working on? And then let's make sure we get you in that department so you get the experience that's right for you.
Thanks so much. Someone has asked a question off the back of that, which is, do you have any examples or advice on how you might handle mistakes in your job? I guess they're looking for. Yeah.
Every day people make mistakes. My goodness, it's part of their job, isn't it? Yeah. Resilience is absolutely critical in what we do, right? You have to have a resilient mindset. And as you've heard throughout this session, we are constantly learning and doing new things. You don't stand still when you're in an audit environment. But you are constantly being coached. You've got a big team around you to help and support you. So you've got to try, you've got to ask the question, and you've got to hear the feedback and then learn from it next time, right? So making mistakes is how you grow. Don't worry about it.
Thanks so much. And Claudia, please could you tell us a bit more about the Manchester office? What's it like to work there?
The Manchester office is great. We have our own designated section in the Manchester office, spanning across 3 or 4 floors. It's really nicely set out. It's actually due to get one of the floors is getting a revamp, so that will be really good. We also a lot of the times partner with different businesses or initiatives around Manchester, so that's really great to get involved in. It's right opposite the tram stop, so it's really connected. It's opposite Central Library, and a lot of events and things always happen there. There's lots of food places around, lots of bars and activity venues. So yeah, it's a great office.
Thanks so much, Claudia. And Vivek, someone has asked, in the audit process, how do you actually evaluate what needs to be audited? How do you evaluate what particular financial figures or information actually needs to be audited? How would you know?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. That's probably one of the most challenging parts of the audit. At the early parts of the audit, it's all about risk assessment. As Julie mentioned, we take a risk-based approach. So what we need to do is actually to spend quite a lot of time with management, looking at external information, looking at internal information that we can get, to try and identify, well, where do we think that the greatest levels of risk are likely to be? And there's bound to be certain areas which are much lower risk will perhaps perform less work, and other areas which will be a higher risk. So it would depend on the industry and the sector. That's part of it. It will depend on the particular circumstances of the entity. But typically, that risk-based approach kind of feeds through everything we do in the early parts of the audit. That then allows us to come up with an audit plan, and then we go off and execute it. The thing about audit, and this kind of links back to sort of the whole point around mistakes, and it's interesting because ultimately there's a lot of judgment that needs to be made when you're determining how to perform an audit. There isn't going to be a right or wrong answer, and there isn't one set way to perform an audit. So it's really crucial to be able to be confident in the judgments that you make, and those, it's that thought process that leads to the judgment that gives for a good audit. Whether or not it's a good audit or not, it depends, but you can always be confident if you've gone through the right process and you make the right judgments. That's the way to try and do it.
Thank you so much. And we have a really good question for Julie, which is, for someone who's worked at another auditing firm, what makes KPMG different? What made you stay there? Why should people come to KPMG? Is it to do with the supportive culture, or is it to do with the opportunities that they offer you maybe?
Culture is the thing I'd pull out. It's the environment that we've got at KPMG, that it's all about bringing yourself to work, which absolutely critical. So we want people to just be themselves, speak up and drive the career that you want. So those that are sort of proactive and that go-getter attitude is just really encouraged and supported. And effectively, if you ask a question and say, I'd really like to do that, it's always that, right, well, how do we make that happen? It's really, really supportive and great culture to be in.
And someone has asked, do all our clients typically come to us, or do we have to go out and get clients, convince companies to choose us rather than competitors?
Can be a bit of both, to be honest. So a lot of what I do in the regions, it is about relationships. So it's about knowing the market and knowing the CFOs on patch. So potentially some people might say, Julie, please, can we have KPMG? And it will be what we call a non-competitive tender. To be honest, most of the time it's a competitive process, because people want their auditors to be independent. That's a really, really important part of what we do, that we are the independent person coming in and looking at those financial statements. So audit committees like to hear from a number of firms and then choose the best offering for them. So generally it is a competitive process, which is really good fun.
Thank you so much. So it is almost 3 o'clock, and I'd like to thank everybody for joining us on the session today. Just a final reminder that you can apply to all of our positions at kpmgcareers.co.uk. On our website, you'll be able to see all the locations that we offer jobs, many of which are at the locations that everyone who's on the panel today who are working at, as well as you can see all of the information regarding insight programs, vacation schemes, and graduate programs. And we really hope that you do consider applying for 2023 programs. Please get your application in as soon as possible. I believe this session is being recorded, and that further information can be sent to you. And also we will open for 2024 applications around October 2023. So thank you so much for everyone today for joining us. A big thank you to Julie, Zane, Claudia, Lewis, and Vivek. Thank you so much. And thank you so much for everyone for being so engaging and asking all of your questions. So thanks very much, everyone. That does bring us to the end of the session today.